What's the craziest reason you had to fire someone? We had someone fall asleep at his desk with a lit cigarette in his hand. In an office full of cubicles like maybe 6 to 7 years ago. Smoking wasn't legal anywhere indoors, let alone in an office building in Mayo. And the first time he wasn't even fired. He was fired when it happened again. I'd have to go with a guy who in the span of 24 hours started a fist fight with another employee on camera with witnesses, then called the police and said the other guy did it, trying to press charges. I just sent the video. Trespassed on the property the following day and slared at my boss on camera with witnesses, then called the police and said my boss did it. I just sent the video. Hurt himself somehow and went to the hospital where he told the doctor he'd been attacked at work. Doc found no injury consistent with his story and well yeah, camera. I worked retail and we had an employee that would hide and take naps inside racks of clothes. Somehow that wasn't the reason we fired her. We fired her for stealing clothes and then wearing them to work. Once I had a guy call in sick to his restaurant/bar shift right before his shift and then proceeded to show up shit-faced drunk for happy hour during the time he was supposed to be working. He was not a bright man. Dumbus stole a $100 bill out of the register at the end of his first shift alone on register. Years ago, at a lumber company. Had a guy, less than 2 hours after he started on his first day, pick up his car with a forklift and stand underneath it to see what was rattling when he drove. Not me but my dad. He has a small handyman company with less than a handful of employees. His tools somehow have the habit of growing legs when he's at construction sites, so he rigorously writes his name on everything with permanent marker. One day, shortly after he hired someone new, his folding ruler is missing. He asks around if anyone has seen his folding ruler, but that doesn't seem to be the case. He doesn't think much of it. Sometimes things get lost. The next day he sees the new hire with a familiar looking folding ruler. He asks him to see it. New hire refuses. Dad tells him that he's his boss and insists he shows him the ruler. He complies under pressure. Sure enough, there's my dad's name on it in capital and bold letters. Now that could've been an honest mistake and there probably wouldn't have been any repercussions if he simply said, "Oh, my bad. Must have put the wrong one in my pocket. Here's your ruler." But the new hire insisted that this was his ruler and that the name on the side of it wasn't my dad's handwriting, but rather a note the new hire had written on it himself to remember my dad's name. What makes it even more stupid is that my dad's company pays for the tools of his employees. He could've simply asked for a folding ruler and my dad would've given him one for free. But, no, he needs to steal the boss's folding ruler and give the stupidest lie imaginable as an excuse. Edit. I really hoped I wouldn't have to deal with the "your dad fires people for taking €3 tools" comment, but as it came up and is far down the comment chain, I'm gonna put it here in case somebody else also feels the need to address this. Had to fire a guy for coming to work high on meth and getting lost in a closet while painting it. Asked what the deal was and was told SHHHH I'm having a conversation. That was his last day in Mayo. He got lost in Narnia. Not too crazy. More stupid than crazy. One of the programmers on my team was sitting at his desk looking at porn. And this is cubicle land. No offices. My director walked into the area to talk to me and saw it. Then it was the first thing he told me about, so I got up and walked over for a look myself, and there it was. Me and the director looked at each, and I said I gotta take care of this. So we walked back 2 hours. I told them what was going on and what we saw, and they told me to fire him. So I did. He lost a $110,000 job for looking at porn on his computer at work. I work at an art studio where we teach classes and sell pottery that our artists make for others to paint. I'm one of the artists and the manager. I started getting a funny feeling about one of my employees. She wasn't doing anything blatantly wrong, just seemed to work really slowly sometimes, request insignificant but kinda odd schedule changes, and have different break habits from the other staff. I started feeling like she was stealing, but this is a really small business, so I didn't have her on camera or any way to really prove it. Until she accidentally sent me a video of herself painting pieces that I made from her home. I worked at a retail store and found one of my coworkers was using the company iPad that we used to play music and order lunches to go on Craigslist and search for hookups. She didn't even bother to delete the search history. I worked at a pet store and was the lead cashier, so I had to train this girl who didn't think she had to abide by the uniform because it's just store name and doesn't count as a real job. That was a warning that despite her thinking she did need to follow the uniform rules. Then when ringing up customers she actually told customers they couldn't buy certain items because we were running low and she planned on getting a pet soon and wanted these items. I apologized and rung them up. Second warning with me explaining how that's not how it works and she could shop when she's off the clock. Finally my manager fired her when she tried to steal one of the cats that were up for adoption after being told she needed to wait for approval after they do a home visit and make sure she can care for the cat. Her excuse for trying to steal the cat? Her landlord doesn't allow pets, so she wouldn't be approved, and she'd be a much better pet parent than anyone else who wanted the cat and much better than any of the customers we got. The girl didn't even last a week. CEO ordered me to fire one of my interns because he was trying to hit on one of the other interns the CEO had the hots for. Fired a guy for looking to pay someone to cast black magic on the owner and the owner's family to bewitch them into giving him a raise and, ironically, never firing him. Only reason I found out was because he asked someone else in the office for help in finding a witch doctor to cast the spells and word got round. No one wanted to be in the same room as him after that. When I confronted him, he said the devil made him do it, so it wasn't his fault. I live in the Middle East. I definitely did not wake up expecting to fire someone for black magic that day. Side note, practicing black magic is literally a death sentence here. I was a bartender / bar manager. This guy came in one night and said he was an aspiring DJ and asked if we would consider hiring him to come in just on Sunday nights to DJ for us. He said we wouldn't have to pay him at first. He would just take tips and we could renegotiate after he helped to build up our Sunday night crowd. He lasted less than 3 months. He drove away so much business and I got so many complaints. He played the same songs every week and when people made requests for commonly known songs, he had no idea who they, the musicians, were. I had to fire someone who was working for free. He was a nice guy, which is the only reason he lasted as long as he did. I work construction, and one of the subs gave me an invoice with no receipts. Turns out he wanted $30K for 4 weeks of work without paying the companies he rented equipment / dumpsters from. I paid off the companies he owed money to, and told him to fuck off. Sad part is he's probably out there still doing the same thing. In the early 2000s I managed a coffee shop that required the customers' names to be put on the cup. One guy looked like he was doing it, but upon closer inspection on some cups he was writing an IP address. Turns out he was running an illegal sports book out of the shop. He did quit before I had to technically fire him because he found out I knew. Plumber. My helper and I went to do a punch list at a new home. When the very attractive 20-something-year-old answered the door, I asked what the problem was, and she said, "When I take a shower, the shower head makes a whistling noise." My helper said, "Hell, if I saw you naked, I'd whistle too." She complained to the super. I had no choice but to fire him. Might not be the craziest, but when I was working in fast food, Subway, I had to fire a guy for assaulting a customer. He had a bad temper. He threw the tuna scoop at a particularly difficult Karen. I had to request the customer to not press charges. I had to fire a pizza delivery driver because he threatened another driver with the giant rock knife we used to cut pizzas. His reason was the other driver was gay and he didn't like his decadent lifestyle. Had to fire my own brother from our distribution company. Really was not easy and definitely caused family fights. He had been using our product so much so that we lost half our stock. To be fair, he got over it in about half an hour. We were 7 and 5 selling candy to fundraise. Okay, this is my cousin's story. He worked as an electrician. He and a co-worker were running some data cables in an office. An attractive young female office worker got up from her chair and left the room while co-worker was working in her office. When she returned, she found the electrician intently sniffing the seat of her chair. She complained and the guy got canned. He was outside smoking a joint, illegal in my state, during the dinner rush. He was also sharing it with another employee that was there on a work program from a special needs house. It was just so stupid. We didn't drug test. He could smoke at home all he wanted. Just don't do it at work. I work for a hotel. Had to fire 2 separate employees on 2 different occasions for letting people in vacant rooms to smoke crack and steal from the rooms. I had to fire an employee because they were juggling kitchen knives. Like literally juggling them. And to make it worse, there were 2 high school aged employees right next to him. He was trying to impress. In another situation, I would have thought it was cool, but I had to fire him on the spot. I fired our web guru after he copied our entire product, supplier, customer, and order history database onto an Oz server and tried to sell the data to our competitors. We found out after we stumbled across a copy of our website registered in his name with godaddy.com while doing market research. We screen capped all his activity and he's currently in prison. Hell, that guy. Had to fire a manager because she was hiring people for her department based on their zodiac sign. I was in charge of recruiting for her department and kept sending her qualified candidates and her feedback was always so vague on why she didn't like them. Apparently she was asking candidates when their birthday was, not supposed to do, to see if they would be a good fit for the team. Fired people because the company said it needed to be done to save money. I proceeded to have to outsource their work to a third party paying 10 times their salary. I guess the 2 things came from different budgets, so this was somehow seen as a savings. Corporate math. Fired a guy because he refused to work alongside a black dude. I'm the black dude.